Today, I have a story about what it's like to go to a county fair in the United States so that you can learn more vocabulary in the best way possible by listening to a real story in English. If we haven't met, I'm Tanya. I'm the creator of our She Speaks Fluency program for women. And in addition to telling you my personal story, I'm also going to tell you a little bit about the difference between a fair and a circus. So if you're joining me here live, please let me know where you are from, where you're listening from, what's your native language, why are you learning English, and why do you want to be more fluent? These are such important questions for you to answer, and I talk about them in some of my other videos. But today, let's talk about what it was like for me to go to a county fair. So let's talk a little bit about what a county is. So, of course, we have the whole United States, and then we have each of the individual states, and then each of the states is broken down into counties. And so a county is smaller than a state. And when I was a child, going to the county fair was something that I really looked forward to for a number of reasons. I think one of the biggest being that I got to spend time with my cousins and my friends who were also going to the fair. So let's talk a little bit about what the difference between the fair and a circus is. The fair was put on by the county, by that part of the state, and it is a local event put on by and held for the local people. Now, there may be people who come from outside the county, but most of the people who attend are from that county, and the events are all done by people in the county. And some of the events are, you might have, there might be a circus that comes. There, in the case of the county fair I went to, there were rodeos, music, rides like carnival rides, carnival games. And then for me, one of the parts that I really loved was all of the parts that had to do with 4-H. 4-H is a club that is for children to learn all kinds of things. So, for example, I learned things about cooking and sewing and different things like that. My cousins who lived on farms, they learned things about raising animals and living on a farm. And when you went to the county fair, you could see things that other 4-H members had done. Like you could see their sheep or their chickens, or you could see what they had sewn or what they had cooked. And I really loved this part. It was a bit of a competition for me in the categories that I entered in cooking and sewing, but also I got to see all of the animals and see what other children were doing. And this was something I really loved. I always wanted to live on a farm and have sheep and chickens and cows and horses. That wasn't something I did as a child. I did live with my aunt and uncle who had a farm, but I lived in the little town. Even though we went to the farm, I actually helped work on the farm. We didn't live on the farm. So this was one of the reasons that I really loved the county fair. I also loved the circus. I'm curious, have you ever been to a circus where they have acrobats and all kinds of animals doing tricks and things like this? The circus is often done by something that a group of people that do this for profit. This is their business, and they travel around the country where a county fair is held by the people in the county for the county. So that's one of the main differences. Also, circuses have changed over the years. We have become more aware of how to treat animals in a more humane way. This is a word you may have heard me use before. In a more humane way, meaning treating them better. And we don't use animals in circuses like we did in the past. This is one of the ways we have grown and learned to do new things. But in doing a little research for today, I found that there are still circuses here in the United States. They've just changed the way they do it more. They maybe do more acrobats and shows like that. It was very fun for me to go to the circus as a child as well. And another thing I really liked was the rodeo, where you would see the horses um, maybe running the barrels. So the horses would run around barrels, or they would have two people on horses roping a cow, learning how to do those kinds of things that they might do on a ranch, and those kind of things. And I enjoyed that as well. Another thing that was also common at the county fair where I went was car races, like local car races with older cars, not the NASCAR races that you are probably or might be familiar with. In fact, when I got older and learned about NASCAR, I was like, wow, that's really different than the experience that I had. Okay, so I'm curious, have you been to a fair? Have you been to a circus? And have you done either of these in the United States? And which do you prefer? I see we have people listening today from the UAE, Brazil, and Argentina. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you live. And for those who are listening to the recording, it's great to be able to answer some of your questions and to tell you these stories so you can hear some of the things about the culture, but also hear some of the vocabulary you already know and maybe a little bit of what you're still learning. So for me, the county fair when I was a child happened once a year. It was typically in the summer. And in the town where I lived, even though it was a small town, it was one of the biggest towns in that area. And it wasn't far from my house. I could have walked there. Usually we drove because it would have been a long walk. And the family would sometimes go together, or I would go as I got older. I might go with my friends, or I remember most going with my cousin who is a similar age to me. And I haven't been to a county fair in a long time, but when I became an adult and moved out of state and heard people talking about the state fair and that it was a much bigger fair than the county fair, I thought, wow, the county fair is so fabulous. Why would you want to go to the state fair? Then when I had children, my children's dad loved to take them to the state fair. And so I did go to the state fair a couple of times, and it is huge. It's like a county fair, but huge with more events, more of the things I've been telling you about, and more diversity, more different kinds of things. So I prefer smaller events. How about you? Do you like to go to big events with a lot of people, or do you prefer kind of a medium-sized event like a county fair, or do you like to have smaller, even smaller events? I prefer something kind of medium-sized to smaller. So, do you have any questions about any of the words that I've been using today here in this story, or what a county fair is, or a circus, or any of those kinds of things? Hi, Carlos from Mexico. Welcome. It's great to see people here from different countries. Since I don't see any questions in the chat here right now, I'm going to encourage you to put your questions in the comments when this is posted as a recording. And also give you a little, I like to give you a little idea. If you have never been to or seen or even heard of a county fair, you could go to your favorite search engine like Google. My favorite search engine is Ecosia. And just put in the words county fair. You could even choose a state if you wanted to, and then go to the images to see the pictures. Or you could read about it. You might be able to see other videos about this. But what you really want to do to practice your English is tell someone about what you've learned. Tell them in English, ask them what they know, practice speaking your English, or write about it a little bit. If you want to continue practicing your English right now, I've put some links to some great videos below. And once this is a recording and posted on YouTube, I'll put link to another video so you can learn more vocabulary right here. And I hope you'll join me on Wednesday. This is Wednesday. I hope you will join me next Monday for another live. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in another live soon.